the direction of where it goes is still to be written, still to be determined. Where do you think this country goes from here? Do you think this makes a change?
Well, first off, I think Governor Cox has been a real leader on this. And whether it's a watershed moment or not, I think it's a function of if it results in a tangible action. And I would argue you need to diagnose the problem kind of honestly and openly before you can move to solutions. But I see the problem as having kind of three legs of the stool here. The first is that our economy is basically, our stock market's being driven by 10 companies who are in the business of trafficking attention and have figured out, their algorithms have figured out that we used to think sex sells, what we found is something better, and that is rage. And these algorithms have figured out that the best way to get engagement in more Nissan ads is to figure out your political leanings and then take you as far as they can, tweet by tweet or reel by reel or TikTok by TikTok, to an extreme. And now that Americans get two-thirds of Americans get their news from social media, the temperature has just gone up. And I would ask all of us to do what Darth Vader suggested and search your feelings. You know this to be true. The second thing is we have young men in this country who have a lack of opportunities, whose prefrontal cortex doesn't catch up to a woman's until he's 25, are sequestering from society, and are up against the deepest pocketed, most talented companies in the world with godlike technology, trying to convince them they can have a reasonable facsimile of life on a screen with an algorithm. The result is they're sequestering from relationships and guardrails. You have literally the amount of time young men are spending with their friends has been cut in half. They're not attaching to work, they're not attaching to school, they're not attaching to relationships, and they're increasingly vulnerable to be radicalized online. And then the third thing, and it's boring, but there's just no getting around it. I'm in London right now. Over the next 12 months, there will be 30 people killed by guns in the UK. Since Charlie was assassinated yesterday, there's likely been about 120 deaths just in the US from gun deaths.
It doesn't, I mean, I agree with your bleak assessment of all the legs of the stool on this, but there's not a lot of off-ramps there. I mean, there's the financial incentives for these companies are not changing at all. There's no call for regulation, really. Individuals, families are waking up and trying not to have phones in schools, but even that's a struggle for a lot of families. I mean, the phrases engraved on shell casings, apparently discovered by investigators, references to video game memes and an internet message board. And you have like social media influencers on the right, and I haven't, the ones I've seen have been on the right, but I'm sure there's outrage on the left and people calling for talking about war.
Yeah, I do. I think I'm a little bit more hopeful and not as bereft, and I would argue that we need to be hopeful. And there are specific solutions around social media. Remove 230 protections for algorithmically elevated content, such that if your company is not putting in safeguards and a young man enters into a relationship with a character AI and he or she is under the age of 18 and decides to kill themselves at the urging or at least the approval of that character AI, the company who has elevated that content is liable. A certain amount of antitrust to make things more competitive. There's a lot. Think about the rents these companies are charging.
But all those guys are having dinner with the president in Washington. I mean, there's no appetite for regulation.
But you had mentioned phones. My colleague Jonathan Haidt is getting phones banned in, I think it's 19 states now, and we have never seen an acceleration in test scores like we've seen over the last 12 months because we are banning phones in schools. We age-gate pornography, the military, and cigarettes, but we don't age-gate social media. In my view, there's no reason that anyone under the age of 16, maybe even 18, should be on social media. Mark Benioff compared social media to cigarettes, but 17-year-olds don't pick up a pack of Marlboros, smoke them, and then get radicalized. There is evidence showing that social media's impact on young girls leads them to self-harm, and its impact on men is also mostly self-harm, but also external. They can start harming others. And to be clear, the majority of young men, I don't want to pathologize them, are not going to pick up a gun. But I absolutely think there is regulation and there are things that can be done. We need to get more people, specifically more male role models and more economic opportunity presented to young men who are 4 times more likely to kill themselves, 3 times more likely to be addicted, and 12 times more likely to be incarcerated. There are absolutely common sense solutions here to address some of these things. And the illusion of complexity is weaponized by the incumbents. It's weaponized by big tech, who doesn't want to take responsibility for common sense solutions. It's weaponized by the incumbents, whether it's the NRA. We fall into this illusion that it's a democracy. It's not. The passive majority has bested by special interest groups that are well organized and well funded, as evidenced by the gun lobby and the tech lobby that seems to be dining with the president every other week. But no, resist. There is an opportunity here to change things. So is this a watershed event? We'll see.
Scott Galloway, thank you.